In 1837, the Louisiana sun rose like a vengeful god over endless rows of sugarcane, scorching the earth into a furnace of eternal bondage. Each stalk stood rigid as green sentinels in the army of ownership, their roots drinking deep from the sweat and blood of those forced to harvest them. The air hung thick with the metallic tang of exhaustion, and in the distance, whips cracked like the bones of broken dreams. Eliza moved among the spectral line of the enslaved, her steps measured and deliberate, her swollen belly 8 months taut. Not a burden, but a rebellion carved in flesh, carrying the seed of a future no master could claim. Her machete swung in rhythmic defiance, slicing through cane with a wet hiss that echoed the quiet rage building in her chest. Blood welled from fresh blisters on her palms, mixing with the soil that had claimed generations before her. Yet Eliza's eyes pierced the shimmering heat haze toward the north, where whispers spoke of air untainted by chains, of children who could run without the shadow of sail looming over every dawn. She had become the quiet queen of those whispers, her voice weaving through the cabins at dusk like smoke from a hidden fire. Soft promises of escape routes mapped by stars, of northern abolitionists whose hands reached across bayous to pull souls from slavery's grave. As the sun climbed higher, overseers prowled the field edges like jackals, their leather whips coiled serpents ready to strike. One cracked now, distant but piercing. A young man's scream rose and fell, swallowed by the cane's indifferent sway. Eliza paused, her free hand cradling the fierce kicks from within, the child thrashing as if sensing the violence pulsing through the earth. "Feel this sun, little one," she murmured to her womb, voice low as the rustle of leaves hiding secrets. "It burns masters too. One day, you'll walk free beneath skies that bow to no man." Nightfall draped the plantation in velvet terror, lanterns sputtering like dying stars. The whipping post stood central, a crude altar where another soul, barely more than a boy, caught with stolen cornbread, was bound. His screams painted the dirt red as leather met flesh in savage cadence, each lash a public sermon. Dreams of freedom died here, flayed alive for all to witness. Eliza watched from the gloom, heart pounding in rhythm with the blows. Betrayal thickened the humid air like poison fog. Informants lurked in every cabin, trading sisters' secrets for extra cornmeal, turning hope's fragile web into a noose of its own. In the cramped suffocation of her cabin that night, moonlight stabbed through cracks in the roof like accusing silver fingers. Eliza knelt on the packed dirt floor, her belly resting heavy against her thighs, and traced crude constellations with stolen charcoal on birch bark. Each pinpoint became a map north, Polaris the guiding spear, the drinking gourd ladling freedom's path. The child pressed hard against her ribs, demanding, alive with unquenchable fire. Owls hooted like judges outside, wind sighing through cane fields in lament for souls long lost. The plantation breathed around her, a living beast of malice, every shadow pregnant with gathering storm. Eliza's fingers closed tight around her makeshift map, a lifeline for two souls chained as one. Deeper than fear burned certainty. This child would shatter the silence her blood might seal. The cane swayed in silent approval, witnesses to the blood oath sworn in sweat and shadow. Feel every shadow's weight. Here, hope was no gentle gift, it was the deadliest bait beneath the noose. Moonlight pierced the chinks in Eliza's cabin walls like silver daggers of judgment, carving her face into a mask of shadowed resolve. 8 months' wait bowed her over the makeshift altar, a splintered crate scarred by generations of unspoken pleas. The charcoal nub, stolen from the blacksmith's forge during an overseer's fleeting distraction, trembled in her calloused grip as she birthed words from the anguished core of her soul, to the free winds of the north. Mercy for this life I carry, 8 months forged in chains unyielding fire. If death claims my breath before his first, let freedom cradle the cry that follows. Not the howl of impotent rage, but a mother's raw supplication, each letter etched with the precision of a final breath, folded tight as a prayer against the jaws of discovery and betrayal. The air inside thickened with peril's heavy perfume. Damp earth mingled with the metallic tang of fierce sweat, the child's insistent kicks pulsing like a second, defiant heartbeat against her ribs. Eliza paused, her hand cradling the fierce rebellion within, whispering to the unseen life pulsing there. "These words are your wings, little shadow," she breathed. "If the rope tastes my throat tomorrow, they will carry you where no master's eyes can follow, where the air knows no scent of ownership." The cane fields outside rustled in conspiratorial hush, their endless sway a silent chorus urging her onward, while distant owls hooted verdicts from the deepening night, their calls weaving through the humid dark like threads of impending doom. Pre-dawn fog cloaked the desperate delivery like a thief's shroud over stolen hope. Eliza slipped from her cabin, her belly leading like a lantern of forbidden light through the mud-slick paths to the stables where Martha waited, the mistress's letter girl, her eyes hollow mirrors reflecting their shared dance on the edge of oblivion. "Her apostles fly north every Sabbath eve," Martha breathed, her voice frayed thin as worn rope, eyes darting to shadows that might harbor informants. Abolitionists' hands await in Philadelphia's hidden circles, but one slip means flames claim our tongues first, our graves yawn wide together under that same merciless sun. Eliza pressed a faded locket into her palm, its tarnished silver casing holding her mother's silhouette, eyes fierce even in faded sepia. "If the oak by the stables claims me at dawn, let this child rise unbound. Make his story the blade that cuts your own chains." Risk hung between them, palpable and heavier than any iron fetter ever forged. Martha's single nod sealed a blood pact in the fog and fear, her fingers closing tight around the locket as if it burned with borrowed courage. Days crawled heavy with waiting, Eliza's every step in the fields watched by eyes turned traitor, whispers of her northern letters slithering through cabins like venom. The overseer's patrols thickened at dusk, whips uncoiling more freely, as if the plantation itself sensed the fragile web of hope trembling on the brink. High atop the plantation's arrogant crest, the big house glowed like a false heaven built on broken backs. The mistress, a silk spectre with hands jeweled like captured stars, her comfort woven from the very cane Eliza bled for, slit open the weekly parcel amid whispers of lace-trimmed gossip and clinking crystal. Eliza's cry fluttered free among the doilies and scented stationery, its ink still damp with bayou desperation and maternal plea. The woman's eyes widened in horror's fractured mirror, pupils dilating at treason's raw perfume choking the lavender sachets that perfumed her world. Recognition dawned cruel and swift. The same hand that penned simpering love notes for her vanity now begged mercy for a slave's spawn. With a venomous hiss that curdled the perfumed air, she thrust the letter into the hearth's ravenous maw. Flames devoured the words with greedy, licking tongues, curling the paper black as the plantation soil that had birthed Eliza's endless chains, edges crisping like flesh under the lash until only fragile ashes remained. Those ashes crumbled delicate onto marble floors cold as absent justice, ground beneath a slippered heel into utter oblivion. Midnight clawed its way back with Martha's return, her face pale as moonlit bone, lips bloodless with the weight of failure. "Devoured by fire," she choked out, voice a grave whisper that hung in the cabin's stifling air. Eliza's hand stilled upon her belly. The kick came savage then, a tiny fist hammering defiance against the swallowing void, as if the child himself rejected the death of hope. No scream escaped her lips. Instead, a slow ember ignited deeper in the ruin's throat, that fragile coal of possibility surviving where paper had perished. She rocked gently in the gloom, humming the dirge her own mother had sung under similar merciless moons, a melody carrying ancestors who had whispered escape maps through cotton fields and poisoned overseers' whiskey under harvest moons. The child answered in muffled thunder, pressing as if to etch that song into eternity's memory. The burned plea haunted like a vengeful ghost set loose. Each imagined ash flake took root deeper in memory's fertile soil, sprouting where no whip could reach. Distant drums pulsed faint from other bayous, rebellion's hidden heartbeat swelling through the veins of the night, drawing ever closer. Eliza dreamed that night of boundless skies where her child laughed free under unclaimed stars, the rope by the stables swaying empty in the breeze below, a vision fueling the unquenchable fire no master's flame could ever fully quench. The plantation slumbered unaware, its beastly breath steady and deep, but in that cramped cabin, words reborn in spirit already plotted the gathering storm. Every burned word plants a deeper seed of reckoning. The silence tightens like rope around the throat. In that hush, the darkest poetry pulls you forward, into shadows where one mother's prayer ignites a lifetime's war. Rain lashed the plantation with the fury of divine retribution, turning the sacred earth into graves of slick mud that swallowed every desperate footfall and whispered prayer. The fragile embers of hope that Eliza had nurtured through cabins and cane fields had metastasized into an inferno across the bayous, revolts igniting like scattered wildfires in neighboring plantations, enslaved souls slipping their iron bonds under the approving roar of thunder, their muffled cries weaving into the gale like a symphony of the long-damned finally rising. Gunshots shattered the night's fragile veil in chaotic bursts of defiance, brief symphonies of retribution that ended brutally under overseers lead and steel. Bodies slumped crushed amid the cane stalks, their blood carving crimson rivers toward the Mississippi's indifferent maw, mingling the essence of the enslaved eternal with the soil that had birthed and devoured their torment for generations untold. Dawn clawed its merciless gray accusation across the horizon, crowning Eliza as the first sacrificial offering on rebellion's bloodied altar. Her glimpsed letters circulated in fevered whispers, her murmurs of northern stars guiding lost souls, her swollen audacity glowing too bright in the overseer's feral, unblinking eyes, all conspired to damn her utterly. There was no courtroom farce, no pretense of justice, only his bellow ripping through the lingering fog like a whip's crack. Rebel serpent, womb-spawned witch who poisons the fields with her northern lies. Rough hands dragged her through the mud graves toward a splintered shed that embraced her like a coffin carved in preview, irons gnawing at her wrists with rust-weeping teeth that traced old sins down her arms in rivulets of brown. The door slammed with thunder's echo, plunging her into womb-like solitary dampness where only her ragged breaths and the child's insistent, thrashing kicks marked the slow crawl of time toward inevitable dawn. She mapped the unborn's fierce shape through the binding chains, her palms pressing life's raw rebellion against the rotwood walls that wept condensation tears like sympathetic mourners gathered in silent vigil. Taste this rain's savage cleanse, little storm. Her melody cracked fragile as lightning-veined clouds overhead, voice threading silver threads of hope through the prison's groaning timbers that seemed to lean in close. Each note carried the ancestral dirges of women before her, grandmothers who whispered escape maps amid cotton fields under harvest moons, great-aunts who slipped nightshade into overseer's whiskey with hands steady as prayer. The child thrashed in perfect rhythm, a tiny warrior sensing the gathering noose's shadow, as if vowing silent alliance against the blade of encroaching light that would soon sever their shared world. High on the veranda, insulated from the storm's chaos, the owner paced like a caged predator, pipe tendrils curling noose-like into the wind-whipped night, his silhouette etched demonic against the lantern's sickly glow. "String the bitch at first light," he decreed to the sheriff's rain-hooded shade lurking below, voice oil-slick with the false piety of prophet. "Her womb changes nothing. Let her example breathe fear into every nigger belly from here to Natchez. Keep the fields bent and broken." Law prostituted itself willingly to coin's unyielding altar, mercy suffocated in avarice's endless flood, pregnancy's sacred shield shattered for the sake of spectacle's cruel, public sermon that would echo through cabins for years. In her fevered mind's eye, Eliza envisioned oceans stretching unbound, her child laughing free on decks where salt winds whipped to no master's command, visions that mocked the shed's creaking timber prison now shuddering under the storm's unrelenting assault. Word spread through the cabins like plague's swift harbinger, fever-hot and unstoppable. The stable's ancient oak hungered eternal, its rope pendant swaying in wind dance like a serpent's tongue tasting the air for prey. Faces ghosted at windows in a mix of horror and fascination, pulses hammering a collective dirge, children clutched tight to parents' legs as final graces were whispered into tiny ears. Eliza's shed became a profane shrine overnight. Distant kin pressed ears to its walls, drinking her fractured song like last sacrament before communion with death. The child kicked with revolt's relentless rhythm, etching his mother's unbreakable vow into flesh and memory, stealing both against the dawn when rope would kiss throat and claim its due. The storm outside mirrored the maelstrom raging within her, lightning etching the gallows silhouette stark against a bruised sky, thunder rolling like a maternal curse across the bayou's hidden veins. Shackled in the cold cradle of chains, Eliza recited the lineage of rebels etched fire deep in her soul. Nat Turner's ghost riding Virginia winds, Denmark Vesey's echo from Charleston scaffolds, whispers of Haitian machetes crossing treacherous waters to inspire. The shed walls joined her weeping now, rivulets tracing paths like secret escape routes mapped in moisture alone. Rebellion's distant embers glowed undimmed through rain veils. Her death would water freedom's seed sown deep in resistant soil, sprouting thorns no whip or rope could ever fully prune. Stars pierced fleeting rifts in the cloud canopy overhead, winking complicit through the roof's jagged cracks, Polaris gleaming like a spear tip aimed unerringly north. Eliza's voice rose to a final defiant crescendo, not plea but prophecy carved in song. From my blood spilled unjust, you rise unbound, thunder's own child, destined to shatter the silence of empires built on graves. The storm peaked in roar, wind howling chorus to her vow, the plantation beast slumbering unaware of the blade sharpening in the forge of her womb. Every hammering drop on the roof carried unanswered accusations, pulling deeper into shadows where survival's poetry etched itself eternal, unbreakable. Dawn crawled over the plantation like a sentence already written, gray and heavy, offering no mercy and no surprise. The storm had passed, but its rage clung to the soaked earth, to the sagging cabins, to the bodies that moved in slow, fearful silence. The air felt thinner, as if the world itself were holding its breath, waiting for something it could not stop. Inside the shed, Eliza knew without being told that the day had arrived. The cold in her bones was not from the damp alone. It was the chill of understanding. When the door swung open and the overseer's shadow filled the frame, she did not flinch. The child inside her shifted, pressing against her ribs, as if reaching for the world he had not yet seen. They unshackled her wrists only to claim them with rough hands, dragging her out into the dim light. Her legs, stiff from the night in chains, stumbled once, then found their strength. She walked, not as a woman being led to slaughter, but as someone who had already made her peace with the cost. Eyes watched from windows, from gaps in the wood, from behind trembling hands. No one spoke. The plantation had its own language in such moments. Tightened jaws, flared nostrils, children pulled silently back from the sight. The older ones knew what it meant when someone was taken at dawn. The younger ones would learn today. The path to the oak was short, and yet it felt like a journey through two worlds, the one that claimed her body and the one she had already entrusted to her unborn child. The tree stood just beyond the stables, its branches wide and indifferent, its bark scarred by ropes that had bitten deep before. The noose was already prepared, swaying slightly in the morning breeze as if impatient. Eliza's gaze fixed on it, not with fear, but with the clarity of finality. This was the place where her story, as they understood it, would end. But in her mind, another story had already begun to write itself, far beyond this field, in a future that did not yet exist. The owner stood nearby, coat buttoned, eyes narrow, face drawn into something meant to resemble solemn duty but twisted by pride. The sheriff, summoned to lend legality to brutality, avoided her gaze. He looked at the rope instead, at the wet ground, at anything but the woman whose death warrant he carried in his silence. A few white faces from the big house had come to watch, their expressions guarded, curious, or cold. For them, this was a warning made flesh. For Eliza, it was a threshold. She felt a cramp tighten across her abdomen and steadied herself, breathing slow. The child pushed again, strong and insistent, as though refusing the idea that this could be the end for both of them. Not for you, she thought, holding his presence like a burning coal inside her. They will not erase you with me. She straightened her back. The overseer read out the charge with a voice that had whipped men into obedience for years. Conspiracy, insurrection, spreading ideas of escape. Each word was a lie and yet, in its own twisted way, an accidental confession of truth. She had dreamed of freedom, had spoken of it in whispers, had tried to carve a way out with words scratched on stolen paper. In their world, that was enough to justify a hanging. When he finished, the owner added, "Let this be a lesson to all. Rebellion breeds only death." Eliza almost laughed at that, a humorless, bitter flicker in her chest. He still believed death was the end of a story. They placed her beneath the branch. The rope, coarse and stained, hung at eye level for a moment before they slipped it over her head. The rough fibers scraped her neck, a small pain beside the weight of everything else. For a heartbeat, she closed her eyes. She thought of her mother's hands, of songs hummed over sore feet at night, of half-told tales of resistance murmured where no overseer could hear. She thought of the letter that had turned to ash in some cold fireplace. She thought of the child, the only thing she could still give to the world. When she opened her eyes again, she did not look at the owner, or the rope, or the sky. She looked at the cabins. She found Martha's face in the crowd, streaked with tears, jaw clenched in helpless fury. She saw children peeking from behind skirts, eyes wide, imprinting this moment into their memory. If she had been allowed to speak, she would have told them this. Do not let them make this only about fear. Remember who I was, not only how I died. But no speech was permitted. Only one sentence would be remembered. The sheriff asked if she had any last words. The owner shifted, ready to shut her down if she dared curse him. Eliza let the silence stretch a moment, feeling the child move once more. Then she spoke, her voice low but steady enough that those watching could hear. He will live free. There was no plea in it, no bargaining with a god or with men. It was a statement laid like a stone at the feet of those who thought they decided fate. A promise, not simply for the child in her womb, but for something that would extend through him. A life that would not be contained by this tree, this rope, or this field. The owner made a dismissive gesture. The platform shifted beneath her. For a fraction of a second, time fractured. The pressure of the rope, the awful drop, the body's instinctive struggle against the impossible. Pain flared, then became something distant, almost unreal. The world blurred into sounds, a gasp from somewhere in the crowd, a sob quickly muffled, the creak of rope bearing weight. Her body thrashed once, then twice, then grew still. To those watching, it was over. A lesson delivered. A threat extinguished. But in that moment, something else was set in motion. Her words, "He will live free," did not die with her. They lodged in the minds of those who had heard them. In Martha, who clutched her own stomach as if to hold back grief. In a young boy who stared too long at the rope and would carry the image with him wherever he went. In a few who would never say it aloud, but would feel something inside them shift. Her body was left hanging long enough for the message to sink in, then cut down like refuse. The men tasked with the job treated her as such, dragging her away with indifference. Yet even then, there was movement in the stillness they did not see. Beneath the heavy fabric of her dress, within the womb that they believed they had silenced, life had not surrendered. As the oak tree stood in its familiar, terrible quiet, the plantation resumed its terrible routine. Fields waited to be worked. Orders barked. Whips cracked. But for those who had watched, nothing was quite as it had been. A woman had walked to her death without begging, without breaking. She had given the rope her body but refused it her final hope. The child inside her had felt every step, every word, every tremor. And somewhere between the drop and the stillness, something had passed from mother to son. A burden, a legacy, a vow. No one knew yet that the story had not ended at the branch. No one guessed that the boy who had hung with her, silent and unseen, would breathe again. No one imagined that the life they almost buried that day would one day speak for all those whose voices had been taken, and that his existence would turn this moment, this hanging of a pregnant woman, into the first chapter of a reckoning. The rope stopped swaying. The earth drank what it was given. The promise lingered. Hours bled into the storm's aftermath like wounds refusing to clot. The plantation cloaked in a hush broken only by dripping eaves and the distant lowing of cattle sensing death's fresh scent. Eliza's body hung from the oak like a broken pendulum, swaying faintly in the dying wind, her form a stark silhouette against the bruised dawn sky. 8 months' swell still improbably taut beneath muddied skirts, defying the finality the rope demanded. The owner had turned away early, satisfied with his lesson carved in flesh, barking orders for her removal like refuse after harvest. Rough hands would cut her down at midday, consign her to an unmarked pit where so many whispers had vanished before. But in the midnight veil before that ritual erasure, something stirred in the silence no one dared approach. Midwife Sarah, eldest among the cabin's shadowed healers, crept toward the gallows under cover of lingering fog, her steps muffled by years of birthing life amid death's shadow. Torchlight trembled in her grip, casting hellish flickers across the scene, revealing horror frozen in eternal judgment. Eliza dangled limp, neck cruelly elongated, face turned skyward in silent accusation. Yet Sarah's eyes, sharp as cane blades honed by desperation, caught the impossible, a faint ripple beneath the swollen belly, like a fish breaching dark waters. No breath stirred the mother's lips, no pulse betrayed the noose's victory, but there, subtle, insistent, life defied the grave's claim. Sarah's breath caught, prayer and curse mingling on her tongue. She had seen miracles in blood-soaked cabins, but this was resurrection's cruel jest. Knife flashed swift from her apron, steel singing soft as it sliced through fabric and flesh with midwife's mercy precision. No time for reverence. The child's emergence was battle, umbilical cord silver thread of defiance uncoiling from death's vault. A cry pierced the gale then, raw, furious, slicing night's throat like judgment unpronounced. Samuel burst forth slick with storm and maternal blood, tiny fists clenched against oblivion, lungs filling with air his mother could no longer claim. Sarah cradled the miracle, severing the tie that bound him to the hanged, wrapping him swift in stolen burlap as his wails challenged the indifferent stars. 8 months' forge had tempered not corpse, but weapon, a boy born where hope strangled, his first breath rebellion's purest echo. Footsteps crunched distant, patrol returning from fields. Sarah dashed into underbrush, infant clutched to breast like contraband gospel, heart-hammering dirge against ribs. Dawn's first light clawed horizon as she gained her cabin, bolting door against the world that would devour this secret. The owner learned at noon, body cut down and carted to Potter's Field. Sarah approached head bowed, voice steady as grave soil. Stillborn, master. The rope took both. His nod dismissed her, prophet's arithmetic blind to life's sly persistence. Beneath floorboards pried by night-fevered hands, Samuel pulsed hidden, warmth against cold earth where ancestors whispered approval. Days blurred in peril's cradle. Sarah fed him stolen milk from her own breasts and those of grieving mothers. Each swallow risks gamble as patrols prowled cabins ghost-hunting whispers of revolt. Plantation pulsed oblivious, cruelty's blind spot birthing its undoing. Overseers whipped shadows for Eliza's ghost, unaware the true air breathed inches below their boots. Sarah named him Samuel in hushed sacrament, God heard, etching meaning into fragile skull. Heard through noose, through storm, through empire's deaf roar. His eyes opened dark pools reflecting mother's steel, tiny grip fierce as the vow that birthed him. Nights deepened secrecy's bond. Sarah rocked him through fevered watches, whispering Genesis tale. Rope's daughter born in gallows shadow, mother's final words woven into his veins, he will live free. Samuel nursed not milk alone, but legend, fire no flood could quench, steel no hammer break. Cabins murmured miracle veiled as stillbirth, hope's ember reigniting where ash should reign. Martha visited shadow-cloaked, locket returned now talisman around infant neck, her tears salt fertilizing the legend growing cell by cell. Samuel's first month marked silent war, each breath stolen from death's jaws, each cry muffled lest bounty hunters sent survival. Sarah taught him world's cruelty early, finger to lips as whips cracked outside, body shielding his from lantern sweeps. Plantation sold rumors swirled distant, new owners' chains looming, but in that floorboard crypt, time suspended. Mother's blood transmuted to son's marrow, promise forged unbreakable. He grew not in light, but defiance's womb, eyes tracking shadows where freedom hid. The oak stood empty now, rope coiled like serpent sated, but its sacrament incomplete. Eliza's grave swallowed silence, yet from its soil sprouted voice unborn. Samuel kicked against confinement, tiny thunder heralding storm to come, life clawing from where masters buried hope deepest. Sarah dreamed that month of northern rails, stars guiding as they had Eliza's pleas. Boy cooed response, as if remembering maps etched prenatal. The world turned unaware, beast slumbering atop its blade. No one guessed the hanged woman's legacy breathed, plotted, endured. Samuel's survival was no accident, but prophecy fulfilled, womb's ultimate defiance, turning execution into Genesis. The cabins watched skies heavier now, sensing shift. Death had birthed not end, but reckoning's dawn. Death's womb spits life's purest venom. One cry no master claims echoes eternal. Feel it pull you forward, into shadows where miracle sharpens into blade, where a hidden air rewrites graves as thrones. Years folded over Samuel like shadows lengthening at dusk, each one a stolen breath beneath Sarah's cabin floorboards, where the earth cradled him in secrecy's unyielding grip. The plantation pulsed above, oblivious to the blade sharpening in its bowels, a boy tempered not by sun and cane, but by whispers of forbidden worlds. Sarah became his forge, her hands calloused from midwifery now tracing letters on torn Bible scraps, teaching him words sharper than any overseer's lash. "These are weapons," she murmured in the dimness, her voice gravel-low as she guided his tiny finger across Genesis and Exodus, stories of bondage broken by divine fire. Samuel absorbed them like parched soil drinking rain, his dark eyes, mirrors of Eliza's unyielding steel, fixing on each symbol with hunger that no rationed cornmeal could sate. By age 5, he knew the tale etched into his bones. Born from the oak's merciless sacrament, mother's final vow, he will live free, pulsing through his veins like undying ember. Sarah rocked him through endless nights, her dirges weaving Eliza's ghost into lullabies, recounting the letter turned to ash, the storm's thunderous witness, the rope's failed grasp. "She traded breath for your fire," Sarah breathed locket, returned from Martha, dangling like talisman against his chest, its faded image of grandmother's fierce gaze imprinting resolve cell deep. Samuel clutched it nightly, tiny fist defiant, dreaming not of fields but boundless horizons where chains rusted forgotten. The cabin became sanctuary profane, its walls papered with mental maps. Polaris spearheading north, bayous veined like escape arteries snaking freedom's path. Danger shadowed every lesson. Patrols thickened post-revolt, lanterns sweeping cabins like reaper's scythe, whips cracking for ghosts of Eliza's whispers. Sarah taught silence first, finger-sealing lips as boots thundered overhead, body shielding his cradle from lantern glow seeping cracks. Samuel learned world's dual face early. Above, cruelty's beast roared ownership. Below, ancestors' murmurs plotted uprising. He nursed legend with mother's milk long dried, each tale fueling quiet rage. A fire banked low but unquenchable, stealing sinew against the grave that birthed him. Age 8 marked fracture. Plantation sale rumors swelled like bayou floods, new master's shadow looming avaricious from Natchez. Chaos brewed, overseers tallied souls like cattle, families sundered at auction block, whips falling freer to quell unrest. Sarah sensed the storm, her old bones aching prophecy. "Time ripens," she whispered one fevered eve, prying boards as thunder rumbled distant. Samuel emerged ghost-pale, 10 years forged in darkness, body wiry as cane root, eyes gleaming feral intelligence. The air hit him fresh, untainted by floorboard rot, lungs expanding with world's first true breath since Gallows' shadow. That night, revolt's embers reignited, not grand blaze, but calculated fracture. As auctioneers arrived dawn, confusion erupted. Stable fire, Martha's subtle torch, horses bolting wild, overseers scattered chasing phantom rebels. In pandemonium's veil, Sarah pressed him toward rear fields. "Follow drinking gourd," she commanded, voice cracking final farewell, locket chain snapped into his palm eternal. Samuel bolted under moonless sky, small form swallowed by cane labyrinth, heart-hammering dirge against ribs. Bayou called bloodsong, mud-sucking boots, mosquitoes veiling trail from hounds baying futile. First night alone tested Forge's temper. Hunger clawed savage, berries bitter salvation, stream water cold as Eliza's final gaze. Stars wheeled overhead conspirators, Polaris unwavering beacon through canopy tears. Samuel traced mother's map from memory, Sarah's Bible lessons incarnate, veins pulsing ancestral pull. Dawn found him miles fled, exhaustion warring resolve, but vow endured, live free. He scavenged cornbread scraps from abandoned camps, evading patrols by daylight slumber in root hollows, night marches ghost silent. Freedom's first taste intoxicated, wild air unbound by master's breath, earth yielding no whip scars. Yet shadows pursued, bounty whispers on winds, slave catcher's legend of newsboy ghost haunting bayous. Samuel shed boyhood skin, emerging feral survivor, locket compass against despair. Weeks blurred survival's gauntlet, fever raving Eliza's dirge, wolves circling failed hunts, isolation gnawing soul. But deeper burned certainty. Shadow's forge had birthed not victim, but blade. He stumbled upon Underground Railroadway Station Month 3, Quaker lantern flickering code through swamp mist. Eleanor Briggs, Iron Faith widow scarred by raids, drew him hearthward, eyes piercing truth from his fractured tale. Eliza's heir, she breathed, recognizing locket legends circulated abolition circles. No questions asked, milk and blanket claimed him, forge passing to gentler hands. Samuel collapsed, first safety since womb's defiance, dreaming oak empty under northern skies. Years under Eleanor's wing honed raw or to steel. Fluent reader by 12, pen became sword. Mother's story inked fiery tracks, circulated secret presses fueling outrage. Born beneath rope, pseudonym whispered meetings, words wounding empires where machetes failed. Yet Forge's shadow lingered, nightmares of swaying pendulum, Sarah's final gaze haunting ink stains. Samuel vowed dual life, survive for self, speak for Eliza's silenced roar. Plantation faded memory distant, but its beast stalked dreams. Samuel grew tall, quiet determination cloaking storm within, locket talisman against chains echo. Freedom was no gift, but conquest wrested from graves, Shadow's ultimate forge, turning Noosa's child into reckoning's voice. Bayous whispered his passage north, Cain swaying approval as legend took root. Shadows birth unbound ghosts. Forests conceal history's keenest blades. Feel the forge's heat pull you onward, where hidden air emerges not broken, but unbreakable, his silenced cry now thunder poised to shatter empires. The Underground Railroad's hidden veins carried Samuel north like blood through shadowed arteries, each safe house a forge refining the blade born beneath the oak. Eleanor Briggs, the Quaker widow whose eyes had seen raids carve families asunder, became his second mother, her iron faith tempered by scars from midnight hunts. No gentle schooling. She taught him literacy as warfare, stolen newspapers and abolitionist pamphlets spread across her scarred oak table like battle maps. By 12, Samuel's hand gripped the quill like Eliza's ghost clutched life, fluent ink flowing where chains had bound his tongue. Words wound deeper than whips, Eleanor whispered during candlelit vigils, her voice gravel etched by years smuggling souls. Your mother's noose birthed this pen, let it carve empires hollow. Samuel's first tract emerged at 14, pages trembling with Genesis fire, born from the rope's merciless kiss, 8 months forged in gallows cradle, a testament to womb's defiance against ownership's grave. Circulated through Philadelphia's secret presses, Eliza's legend ignited abolition circles like dry tinder kissed by spark. No name at first, only Noose Child, whispers spreading bayou to Boston, fueling moral outrage where machetes failed. Meetings swelled, Quakers nodding solemn, freedmen weeping recognition, white sympathizers paling at cruelty's unveiled face. Samuel lurked shadows initially, voice untested, but Eleanor's hand on shoulder urged assent, her vow demands your throat. First podium trembled underfoot at 17, New York Abolition Hall thick with pipe smoke and fervent breath. 300 souls hushed as he unfolded journal, ink-stained relic from floorboard crypt. My mother walked to death unbroken, he began, voice cracking then stealing, 8 months heavy with the future they sought to strangle. Her final words, he will live free. Today I stand proof. Silence shattered into sobs, outrage rising thunderous. Women clutched handkerchiefs, men pounded fists. Papers seized the tale next dawn. Newsboy speaks, hanged mother's miracle fuels war cry. Headlines bled across Atlantic, Eliza's ghost haunting editorial pages from London to Charleston. Fame's double-edged cut swift. By 20, Samuel's pseudonym-crowned tracts, Born Beneath Rope, circulating 10,000 copies yearly, each word venom against fugitive slave laws tightening noose. He mapped Mother's story meticulously. Cane Field's blood oath, charcoal prayers to ash, Thunder's defiant children, Oak's sacrament incomplete. Readers devoured not biography, but indictment. Pregnant woman's hanging crystallized slavery's soul rot, turning abstract evil visceral. Frederick Douglass quoted him rallies, "One womb's survival indicts the nation." Harriet Tubman nodded shadowed approval, recognizing kin spirit forged identical fires. Yet glory summoned hunters. Bounty swelled on noose runaway, slave catchers legend haunting rail depots, posters crude sketched circulating south. Samuel traveled vigilant, false whiskers aged 12 years on face, locket hidden beneath shirt like beating heart. Ambush struck Pennsylvania line. Compartment door splintered, chains rattled, fists claiming bounty flesh. "Got the witch's spawn," growled leader, iron-biting wrists. Samuel's mind flashed Oak pendulum, Eliza's vow stealing sinew. No panic, only cold clarity. "My mother's rope failed," he spat, voice carrying coach length. "Yours will too." Struggle brief but savage, ink-stained hands clawing eyes, boot to groin, window shattered escape into snowy night. Pursuit clawed miles, breath fogging Pennsylvania woods, hounds baying winter's edge. Samuel collapsed church doorstep dawn, stained glass haloing revelation. Mother-child pain mirroring Genesis. Reverend sheltered him, pulpit lending voice next Sabbath. Full tale unleashed to awed congregation, rage transmuted testimony. Hunters arrived midday, badges flashing. Townsfolk barred doors, women wielding brooms, men shotguns cocked. "This boy's no property," preacher thundered. "He's prophecy walking." Catchers retreated, bounty unclaimed, but legend amplified, Samuel's words disarming steel where flight alone failed. Eleanor welcomed return scarred but unbroken, joint tracks now co-authored, Chains of the Womb, America's Hidden Graves. Presses hummed relentless, Samuel's pen birthing schools for freed children, funding rails through sales. Nightmares persisted, swaying silhouette, Sarah's final gaze, but dawn writings exorcised ghosts, each page Eliza's vow incarnate. By 25, halls echoed his cadence coast to coast, youth drawn magnetic, newsboy become symbol, not victim. Railroad deepened commitment, Samuel guided runs personally, lanterns signaling through fog, hands pulling families from peril mirroring his flight. One night, bayou echoes returned. Mother clutching infant, eyes Eliza's steel. "Your grandmother hung for this," he whispered. Woman wept gratitude, babe named Samuel in chain. Legacy compounded, single survival rippling thousands unbound. Civil War's shadow lengthened 1850s end. Samuel's tracks fueled Republican fire, Lincoln noting rope-borne voice, private letters. Yet personal forge burned hottest, locket opened nightly, grandmother's gaze fueling resolve. He dreamed oak reclaimed, rope burned pyre, Eliza laughing free under northern stars. Ink's blade sharpened ceaseless, words no empire contain. Plantation beast stirred response, new laws, raids intensified, but Samuel's voice thundered louder, mother's silence inverted symphony. From gallows hush rose reckoning's roar, one pen severing chains generational. Noose birthed not tragedy alone, but revolution's quill, ink eternal, cutting deeper graves. Pens carve empires, graves eternal. Feel mother's vow through ink veins, where silenced cry becomes thunder, pulling you toward confrontation where words unmake hunters, birthing legacy no rope reclaims. By the mid-1850s, Samuel's voice had risen from shadowed pamphlets to thunder rolling across abolition's storm-swept stages, New York's crowded halls pulsing with the breath of the damned seeking witness. Gas lamps flickered like hellfire eyes on faces etched by outrage. Freedmen shoulder to shoulder with pale sympathizers, air thick with pipe smoke and the metallic tang of impending war. Samuel ascended the podium at 28, no longer boy but man forged oak hard, locket hidden beneath starched collar like beating heart. 300 souls fell silent as he unfolded the journal, ink-faded relic from floorboard crypt, pages trembling with Genesis etched in Eliza's blood. "My mother walked unbroken to the rope," he began, voice low thunder building. 8 months swollen with the future masters sought to strangle in her womb. Her final words carved eternal. "He will live free. Tonight, that freedom speaks through me." Silence shattered into fractured sobs as tale unfolded visceral. Cain's blood oath under merciless sun, charcoal prayers devoured by mistress's flame, Thunder's children birthed in Shed's chains, Oak's sacrament defying death's grasp. Listeners clutched handkerchiefs white-knuckled, women rocking as if cradling phantom infants, men rising fists clenched, raw fury transmuting grief to weapon. A Quaker elder wept openly, recognizing womb's miracle as divine indictment. Freedwoman beside him nodded shadowed steel, her own scars echoing Eliza's vow. Samuel paced stage deliberate, eyes piercing every soul. They hanged not woman alone, but hope incarnate, yet from nooses cradle rose blade no empire quells. Applause erupted seismic, hall shaking like bayou quake, voices chanting noose boy into legend's forge. Dawn brought papers ablaze. Born beneath rope speaks, hanged mother's heir ignites outrage. Headlines bled Atlantic-wide, Eliza's ghost haunting editorials from Boston to London, Charleston planters spitting fury at witch spawn lies. Circulation swelled tracks to 20,000 yearly, Samuel's pseudonym, born beneath rope, crowning moral firebrands, quoted Lincoln circles, Tubman whispers, Douglas thunder. One tract dissected hanging's anatomy. Pregnancy ignored under prophet's lawless altar, sheriff's averted gaze, owner's pride-veiled murder, turning abstract slavery visceral wound. Readers devoured not biography, but scalpel. One womb's survival indicting nation's rotten core, fueling Republican rallies where rope-born voice became whispered code. Fame summoned nooses anew, crueler than Oak's crude fiber. Bounty tripled on noose runaway, posters crudely sketched circulating rail depots south to north. Witches spawn, $2,000 reward, capture alive. Slave catchers haunted platforms, eyes feral scanning crowds, chains coiled serpent-like. Samuel traveled armored vigilance, false whiskers aging face decade, collars high hiding scars, locket talisman against despair's claw. Northern comfort bred complacency peril. Patrols thickened under fugitive slave laws venom. Marshals empowered drag property from free soil. Ambush shattered illusion Ohio-bound train. Midnight compartment splintering under steel-toed boots. Four shadows lunged. Leader snarling, got Eliza's devil spawn. Irons biting wrists raw, bounty lust glazing eyes. Coach passengers froze terror-struck as chains rattled dirge, Samuel's mind flashing oak pendulum. Mother sway, Sarah's floorboard cradle, Eleanor's forge. No panic gripped, vow steeled sinew cold. Rope failed her, he spat carriage echoing, it fails me. Struggle savage ballet, ink hand clawing leader's eyes bloody, elbow shattering nose, boot groin felling second. Window glass exploded escape into icy gale, train shrieking rails as Samuel tumbled embankment, rolling bramble scratched into night. Pursuit clawed relentless, hounds baying winter's bite, lanterns sweeping like reaper scythes, bullets splintering oaks. Breath fogged Pennsylvania wilds, ribs cracked agony-fueled flight, locket swinging pendulum against pounding heart. Dawn collapse found church doorstep, stained glass haloing revelation, virgin cradling Christ mirroring gallows Genesis, colors bleeding mercy. Reverend hauled him threshold, bolt barring hunters pounding fist-dented oak. Sanctuary granted Sabbath pulpit, full testimony unleashed awed flock, rage alchemy to gospel. This ain't property, preacher roared outside fray. He's prophecy flesh walking. Townsfolk surged, farmers shotguns cocked, wives brooms wielding, children stones pelting, catchers retreating tails tucked, bounty dust. Legend amplified tenfold post-escape, tracks detailed confrontation, words unmake chains bestseller funding rails, schools. Samuel emerged scarred radiant, voice deepened confrontation's forge, halls coast-to-coast echoed cadence magnetic, youth flocking, noose boy, symbol unbreakable. Eleanor nursed wounds maternal, co-authoring Womb's Reckoning, America's Graves Unveiled, Press's Humming War Drum. Nightmares persisted, swaying silhouette haunting ink, but dawn exorcised ghosts, Eliza's vow incarnate page eternal. Railroad deepened blood debt. Samuel guided perilous runs lantern-coated fog, hands hauling families peril echoing his flight. Bayou nights birthed kin moments. Mother clutching babe, eyes Eliza's steel. Grandmother hung delivering this, he murmured. Woman named son Samuel Chainlink, legacy rippling unbound. War clouds gathered 1859, tracks fueling fire Lincoln noted private, rope voice stirs necessary storm. Personal forge burned fiercest, locket nightly opened, grandmother's gaze fueling unquenchable. Dreams reclaimed oak, rope pyre ablaze, Eliza laughing northern stars. Ink's thunder rolled unstoppable, words empire-proof. From gallows hush rose symphony silenced no more, one voice severing generational chains, noose birthing revolution's eternal roar. Spotlights summon nooses, yet words unmake hunters. Feel thunder build where silenced cry ignites war, drawing you inexorably to confrontation's blaze, where legacy confronts its hounds and triumphs eternal. Pennsylvania's frost-crusted rails gleamed like frozen veins under winter's indifferent gaze, the train slicing northbound through shadowed hollows where freedom whispered but never promised safety. Samuel boarded at dawn's fragile light, false whiskers itching against weathered skin, locket-heavy talisman beneath wool collar, tracks bundled innocent luggage. Bounty shadows had thickened, fugitive slave laws venom pulsing patrols, posters bearing his crude likeness nailed to every depot. $3,000, noose which spawn, alive preferred. Exhaustion carved hollows under eyes, yet Eliza's vow burned unquenched, fueling endless rails where each mile severed plantation chains deeper. Coach hummed complacent chatter, merchants haggling, families bundled, oblivious to blade seated mid-car, ink-stained hands clutching satchel of fresh sermons. Ambush erupted Carlisle Station, compartment door splintering under steel-reinforced boots. 4 hunters lunged serpent swift, leaders snarl feral, Eliza's devil whelp, bounty ends here. Irons clanked dirge echo, biting wrists raw as coach froze terror silent, women gasping, men averting cowards' eyes. Samuel's world fractured oak flash, mother's sway pendulum, Sarah's floorboard cradle, Eleanor's forge-tempered steel. No scream escaped, vow ignited sinew cold as grave soil. Rope claimed her body, not soul, he rasped carriage thundering, voice whip-cracked defiance. Struggle ignited savage, elbow-shattering leaders nose crimson spray, knee groin-felling brute, ink fingers clawing eyes bloody surrender. Window glass exploded outward, frame splintering as Samuel tumbled embankment, rolling bramble-torn into snow-veiled night, train shrieking rails abandonment. Pursuit clawed merciless, hounds baying winter's razor edge, lanterns sweeping reaper scythes through skeletal woods, bullets splintering ancient oaks ancestral. Breath fogged ragged clouds, ribs cracked agony fueling flight, blood trail painting snow accusation. Miles blurred torment, lungs burning bayou fire, vision tunneling Eliza's final gaze stealing collapse. Dawn's mercy found him church threshold, fist pounding frostbitten oak as consciousness frayed. Door creaked revelation. Reverend Harlan, grizzled sentinel scarred underground runs, hauling him vestibule, bolt slamming hunter fists denting sacred wood. Prophecy bleeds doorstep, Harlan growled, stanching wounds hearth glow, stained glass haloing sanctuary. Mother cradling child pain mirroring gallows genesis, virgin's gaze Eliza's vow incarnate. Sanctuary cradled brief reprieve, broth steaming herbs, bandages binding savagery, Harlan's tales weaving kinthreads. Own brother hanged Natchez, wife scars martial whip. Your tracks lit my fire, Reverend confessed, eyes gleaming fanatic. Hunters encircled midday, badges flashing false authority, shotguns racked demands, slave law claims him, hand over witch spawn. Congregation surged defiant, farmers' pitchforks gleaming, wives' brooms iron-willed, children stones clutched avengers. Harlan thundered threshold. This house shelters God's own reckoning, no fugitive writ profanes these walls. Townsfolk barred advance, women's chorus hymns weaponized, men's defiance shotgun-cocked thunder. Samuel rose pulpit Sabbath-swollen pews, bruises blooming testament, voice deepened forge fresh, full Genesis unleashed, Cain blood oath, charcoal ash prayers, thunder children, oak sacrament defying death, shadow forge birthing blade, ink thunder rolling empires. Flock wept weaponized, rage alchemy gospel eternal. Young blacksmith vowed rails, seamstress tracks, widow sheltering runaways. Words unmake chains steel cannot, Samuel proclaimed crescendo, locket revealed gleaming. Grandmother's gaze fueling unquenchable. Applause seismic, sanctuary shaking hallelujah quake, hunters slinking tails tucked, bounty dust scattering winds. Confrontation transmuted Samuel eternal, scarred radiant, voice confrontation honed magnetic. Press devoured escape. Noose air defies catchers, sanctuary turns hunters to prey. Legend amplified coast-wide, tracks detailing alchemy. Rage not vengeance, but remembrance forging thousands. Eleanor nursed return maternal fierce, co-authoring Hunters Unmade, America's Graves Gospel, presses war drum ceaseless. Nightmares evolved, oak reclaimed pyre ablaze, Eliza laughing glass saints witness. Railroad blood deepened, Samuel guided perilous fog runs lantern Morse, hauling kin families flight echoing Genesis. Bayou echoes birthed sacred, mother babe arms, eyes steel vowed. Grandmother delivered this rope price, murmured. Named Samuel Chainlink, ripples unbound generational. War drums 1860 thunder, tracks fueling Lincoln fire. Rope voice necessary tempest, noted privy. Personal forge scorched fiercest, locket nightly communion, grandmother's gaze unyielding. Dreams sanctuary eternal, glass saints heralding, rope pyre victory pyre, Eliza free skies laughing. Ink thunder unstoppable, words empire-proof severing. Gallows hush symphony silenced no more. One voice generational chains sundered, noose revolution roar incarnate. Yet reckoning incomplete, hunters retreat whispered larger storm, nation fracturing fault line Samuel's tracks mapped. Pennsylvania town became legend beacon, church pilgrimage site where newsboy, pulpit echoed undying. Samuel departed healed blade keener, vow compounded, live free not self alone, but Eliza's silenced thunder, all hanged mother's ghosts marching. Sanctuary's door swung open future bound, frost yielding spring's promise. Hunters faded myth, but blade endured, ink, voice, legacy no law reclaim. From rope's cradle rose unmaking force, words disarming steel where flight failed alone. Words unmake even hunters' fangs. Feel sanctuary's fire pull inexorably forward, where legacy confronts doom and triumphs eternal, birthing final echo where graves become thrones everlasting. April 1865 dawned gray over Louisiana bayous, war's ash settling like grave dust on fields once ruled by cane and chain. The Confederacy lay shattered, its beast slain by cannon thunder that echoed Eliza's silenced vow across fractured nation. Samuel returned south at 48, no longer shadowed fugitive but reckoning incarnate. Tall frame scarred by rails and pulpits, eyes Eliza's unyielding steel, locket gleaming talisman against chest-scarred bounty's bite. No fanfare marked arrival. He sought unmarked soil where oak once claimed his genesis, wildflowers nodding solemn witness to rope's failed sacrament. Kneeling mud-kneed, he pressed bloom to earth swallowing mother's bones, nameless grave, yet throne eternal. You birthed freedom unbroken, he whispered wind-carried, tears salt-fertilizing legacy's root. Air thickened ancestral hush, Sarah's dirge, Martha's locket return, Eleanor's forge, all converging soil sacred. Civil War's pyre birthed Reconstruction's fragile dawn, but Samuel wasted no mercy on pause. Ink thunder evolved empire building. Schools rose freed children's floodgates, classrooms where Eliza's denied letters became birthright. First Academy crowned Natchez ruins, Eliza Briggs Institute, Eleanor's name woven homage, clabbered walls echoing ABCs where whips once cracked. Pupils, eyes wide hunger mirroring Samuel's floorboard gaze, devoured primers penned his hand, from noose to knowledge. Thousands matriculated decades, teachers trained rippling Carolinas to Texas, education's tide washing generational chains. Mother traded breath for pages. Samuel lectured opening. Voice gravel thunder. Claim yours unbloodied. Legacy compounded exponential. Tracks evolved textbooks. Womb's reckoning mandated freedmen schools. Mother's tale Genesis chapter crystallizing slavery's rot. Politicians quoted pulpit cadence legislatures. Lincoln's successor noted rope voice architect Reconstruction speeches. Samuel funded rails perpetual. Underground echoes above ground academies smuggling minds north where bodies once fled. Bayou Nights birthed pilgrimages. Freed mothers naming sons Samuel Eliza Chainlink. Locket replicas talismans generational. One dusk, great-grandbabe clutched bloom identical, eyes steel-vowed, grandmother hung delivering us. Ripples unbound. Single survival thundering multitudes. Personal forge crowned oak return pilgrimage. Standing gallows site, Samuel envisioned rope pyre ablaze victory. Eliza laughing northern stars eternal. Nightmares silenced final. Swaying pendulum transmuted triumph dirge. Locket opened nightly communion. Grandmother's gaze fueling unquenchable. Now joined mother's spectral witness. Dreams sanctuary everlasting. Glass saints heralding. Sanctuary Church Pennsylvania beacon pilgrimage. Pulpits echoing undying cadence. Nation healed fractured fault lines Samuel mapped. Reconstruction acts bore noose claws whispers. Pregnant executions banned precedents his tracts ignited. Planters spat, witch spawn curse. But schools multiplied unyielding, literacy rates freedmen soaring indicting old world's grave. Samuel aged ink-stained patriarch, beard silvered bayou mist, voice deepened decades thunder. Final tracks prophesied, from one womb, thousand thrones, legacy blueprint, schools evolving universities, freed scholars penning histories Eliza's ghost authored. Sunset years witnessed full circle, Pennsylvania Church revisited, Reverend Harlan's successor unveiling plaque, sanctuary of the noose heir, where words unmade hunters. Townsfolk gathered annual, Samuel's escape legend gospel children recited. Bayou Plantation reclaimed, field schools, big house library, oak memorial shaded Eliza's statue. Pregnant form rope defying, inscription he lived free. Samuel traced bronze belly, child kicking phantom echo, vow fulfilled flesh. Death claimed him 1892, 91 winters forged unbreakable, final breath Pennsylvania beside Eleanor grave, died 1878 maternal fierce. No grand funeral, simple plot schoolgrounds, stone etched born beneath rope, freed thousands. Pupils eulogized thunderous, voices compounded legacy. One great-grandson orator rising, eyes steel, locket gleaming. Schools swelled millions matriculated indirect, literacy chains sundered continental. Eliza's story began silence strangled, Cain blood oath, charcoal ash prayers, thunder children, oak sacrament incomplete, shadow forge birthing blade, ink thunder rolling, sanctuary reckoning, legacy unbound. Rope claimed body, birthed not tragedy, but revolution symphony. Sufferings forge yielding liberation steel eternal. One womb's defiance severed empires generational, turning graves thrones, nooses footnotes history's march. Generations later, descendants traced roots oak site pilgrimage, wildflowers pressed journals identical Samuel's bloom. Schools endured ivy halls, scholars citing womb's reckoning canon, Eliza's ghost lecturing unseen. Nation reflected rope mirrors, monuments erected, pregnant hangings enshrined atrocity lessons, Samuel's tracts curricula haunting. From Louisiana Nights hollow belly rose blade rewriting soul, cruelty birthing courage, loss transmuting strength. Eliza traded breath defiance cloaked innocence, Samuel clawed chains history, ink carving cruelty empire's dust. Noose birthed everlasting echoes, suffering steel, graves genesis, one child survival nation's reckoning poetry. Final plantation dusk, Cain swaying approval, wildflower roots delving Eliza's soil. Promise eternal, vow unbreakable. Thunder rolled distant bayous, ancestors applauding symphony silenced no more. Share this shadow truth unbroken. Remembrance resists eternal. One mother's noose birthed thrones everlasting, pulling generations forward where graves bloom freedom undying.